Another day of Jerami Grant trade rumors is just starting to heat up. We got a few more weeks to go, obviously a few more months to go to the trade deadline. The noise around Jerami Grant possibly being shipped out is heating up day by day. We'll talk about Jerami Grant possibly being traded by the Detroit Pistons today with a special guest on today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. This episode is brought to you by TrueBill. TrueBill is a new app that helps you save money by helping you identify and stop paying for the subscriptions you don't want or need. It can even negotiate better deals on those that you want to keep. Per usual, I am your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. And like I've been telling you guys for the past few months, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. You guys have done a great job over the past few days, man. Let's go ahead and refresh the YouTube channel, see what it's sitting at. It's sitting at 965 subscribers. We've gained over like 70 subscribers in like the past 2.5 days. You guys are doing a great job. We are closing in the final 35 subscribers. Go over there if you haven't already at the Locked On Pistons YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button. We're 35 away. It looks like we're going to hit this. I think we might hit it before next week. Screw the end of the year. We might hit it before the end of next week. So I'm looking forward to it. If you haven't already, head over there. Hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. But just like we talked about in yesterday's podcast, we're talking about it again today, possibly trading Jerami Grant. The news is starting to heat up more and more and more. There's starting to be more trade machines out there. There's more talk about the Pistons are zeroing in on trading Jerami Grant before the deadline now. So we're going to be talking about this for a while, for the next few weeks until he gets traded or the trade deadline passes. But I brought on a friend of the podcast, your guys' favorite guest. I know there's been some of you guys who actually have been commenting in the YouTube channel comments saying, hey, get Bryce on so we can talk about this, talk about that. And you know what? I had to go out there and do it for you guys. We got Bryce back on the channel or back on the podcast. How you doing, Bryce?
I'm good, Koo, man. It was a windy day in Kansas. I don't know what it was like in Michigan, but we about blew away out here. So I hope it was better weather where you're at.
Man, I told you on Twitter just a few days ago, me and Megan were driving around, and it was literally blowing me and our car back and forth, back and forth. It was crazy. But today was a nice day, actually. It was a pretty good day. Nice and sun out, everything. It's actually shocking.
We actually canceled school here where I was at because they knew the wind was coming in. And I text you, I almost didn't get to do this because I was repairing some stuff that happened to our patio and stuff from the wind. And it was pretty ugly. So hopefully everybody stayed safe. But I'm glad the weather was good out there.
Yeah, hopefully everybody around you guys stayed safe. I know there's like some mega wind going on down there. I've seen it talked about. So hopefully everyone out there is being safe. If you happen to be listening to this podcast and you're out there somewhere around Bryce and his area, I hope you guys are staying safe out there. But let's go ahead and get into it, Bryce. I spent the entirety of last podcast talking about Jerami Grant and, you know, what I thought about trading him, why I thought it was the right move to do, why they should be doing it, where I'd like to see him go or what I'd like to see get back for him. So we're basically going to go through the whole thing again, except with you on the podcast. So just go ahead and let the listeners know. Do you believe the Pistons should be trading Jerami Grant? Yes or no?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point it probably needs to happen. And I'm one that's, I'll admit, whenever I changed my mind or I was wrong or whatever you want to say, I thought Jerami Grant was going to be in Detroit for a while because of the things he talked about. It's been said multiple times. But I do think things have changed. You bring this up all the time with, I don't know that the organization or Jerami Grant foresaw Cade Cunningham coming to town, coming to the organization and being the type of player he is on the court and off the court. And I think that changes a lot. So I do think it's probably time for Jerami Grant to be traded. I'm okay with it, especially if Jerami Grant's okay with it. I have some specific things I would like to see in return. I tweeted this out a couple days ago. I know some people disagree with me, but I have a kind of a specific idea of what I want to see in return for Jerami Grant.
All right, so yeah, I also agree with you. If you guys listen to the last podcast, you guys will know. I think it's time to move on from Jerami Grant. I have multiple reasons why. And, you know, I've had some people, not very many of you guys, but there's been some of you guys who have kind of said, who you're a Jerami Grant hater. You know, last season, I was one of his biggest supporters. I wrote multiple articles about how he proved people wrong. I was one of his biggest supporters. But this year, I think it became very evident to me. And maybe I'm definitely soured a little bit on Jerami Grant. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. I've soured a little bit on Jerami because of the way he's played. And I don't feel like the way he's playing is good for the development of the rest of the young guys. I feel like it negatively impacts them. That's just my opinion. And I definitely have soured a little bit on him because of that. But he is going to be a great option for any contender out there. Any contender is going to love to have him. And I do think it's time to move on from Jerami Grant. Like you said, I think we both, and just about everybody in Detroit thought, and even The Athletic reported before the season that it was more likely for him to sign an extension than it was for him to be traded. And obviously a few months have completely changed that. It seems like the Pistons are going to trade Jerami Grant before the deadline. It's actually shocking to see this twist. Now, I had been saying that they maybe should be considering trading him for the past few weeks, but I didn't think the Pistons actually would do it until this came out. And it looks like it's going to happen. So it definitely caught me off guard a little bit, but I think it's time to do it.
Did you see the extension numbers though? Like that was the thing that kind of, I guess, sold it for me. And I'm with you as well. Like I thought Jerami Grant was awesome last year. He proved everybody wrong, that he was overpaid and all of that stuff. So I don't want it to be a negative thing with Jerami Grant, but I just think whenever you get Cade, it looks like another top draft pick. I don't know that it fits the same way I thought it was going to, especially depending on what Jerami Grant wants. I don't know that he wants to play third fiddle on a team that's not competing for a championship. But the numbers that came out, Koo, were 4 for $112 million is like what his extension eligible numbers will be, or like that's a lot. I don't know. I don't think I would be comfortable paying that. I don't know how you would feel.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, so thank you for bringing that up. But I wouldn't pay that if I was the Pistons. Like if a contender wanted to pay him that because they know that that's going to contribute to them possibly going to win a championship, okay, then that obviously makes sense for them. But for the Pistons, they don't know when they'll be competing. They don't know when they'll get their second guy. They don't know when they'll fill out the roster. They don't know when anything's happening. And to secure that much salary cap into Jerami Grant, who, again, I've said on the last podcast, I just don't know if he's actually going to be willing to just, give it up to a 20-year-old, 21-year-old Cade Cunningham and just back off at the reason why he came here was to be, one of the top options on the team, if not the top option on the team. I just don't know if that was in the best interest of him. And I definitely don't think it's the best interest of the Pistons to offer him that kind of contract after this season. I don't think it makes sense for them to do so.
Yeah, I think it's way too much. Like you said, it's different if you're going to win a championship, and that's what you have to pay your third or fourth best player. But for the Pistons, they're not going to be competing for a championship yet. And I just don't see Jerami Grant wanting to be the third option. And that's what he's going to be next year, Koo. Don't you think? Like, I mean, if the lottery falls away, hopefully it will for the Pistons, and especially if they end up with Jabari or Paolo, okay, like those guys are going to come in and demand a lot of shots. Hopefully Saddiq Bey gets back into a nice rhythm where he's demanding at least catch and shoot shots. And, Jerami's going to fall into the third fiddle. And I don't know that that's what he wants to do. Why do you want to do that on a team that even next year probably isn't going to make the play-in? So I told you this before we were recording. I think he's probably okayed this and said like, hey, I'm comfortable with this. I don't want to say he demanded it. Maybe he even went to the front office and asked for it and said, hey, we tried it. It's not working out the way we said, things have changed. And, I'd like to go to a contender.
All right, before we move on and go to the ad break and talk about what kind of trade packages you'd like to see for Jerami Grant, all those kind of things, I just want to bring this up. And you tweeted at me. I saw it earlier. You DM'd this to me, but I just want to have this up for everybody. Jerami Grant is averaging the 18th most ISO possessions per game this season, more than Devin Booker and Zach LaVine. He's shooting 28.8% on these isolation possessions. That right there is one of the biggest reasons why I'm okay with moving him. And to speak to what you had just said, next year, I think he should be taking a back seat right now. But the coaching staff hasn't really forced that to happen. They haven't really asked of that to happen. Now, obviously, he's hurt now, so it's like not an issue now. But one of the things I also would be worried about, to be honest, is that, like you said, I do believe he should be the third option next year if he were to still be here. But I'd also be worried, would the coaching staff make that known to him? Would they enforce that? Because they haven't this season, and as Cade's gotten better and as Cade's starting to look good, it still, at least to me, seems like it's like a power struggle. It's not like they don't like each other. There's chemistry issues, but it does seem like on the court when you're watching, it turns into like this, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. And it's not really like, it's not fluid, in my opinion. But I'll give you a chance to comment on that when we come back, and then we'll talk about some trade packages. But first, I got to tell you guys about some of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you a little bit about PrizePicks. PrizePicks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. PrizePicks offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, from points, assists, rebounds, 3 points made, etc. All of our users that deposit and use promo code will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just be sure to use promo code NBA. You pick 2 to 5 players and then over and under on the projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. PrizePicks also allows mixed sports entries. You can take the over on Embiid combined with the under on Rodgers in the same category, in the same entry. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's just that easy. PrizePicks is safe and it offers fast withdrawals as well. So go to PrizePicks.com today and use promo code NBA, or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And I also want to shout out again, like I did at the beginning of the podcast, we're just about 35 subscribers away from our goal of 1,000 subscribers. You guys have done a great job recently. Go ahead, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. It's the best way to support the podcast. Let's try to get to 1,000 before the end of the week. It definitely looks like we're going to hit it by the end of the year, which was our original goal. But let's see if we can hurry that up a little bit more. I'd really appreciate it. But Bryce, I wanted to give you a chance to comment on what I left the last segment on, if you wanted to.
Yeah, so refresh me what your final point was there.
I was basically talking about how I'm unsure of if Dwayne Casey would enforce that, or whoever, if Dwayne Casey wasn't a coach.
Yeah.
Whoever it was, would it? Go ahead.
Yeah, we were talking about the ISO stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna. That's interesting. Like, that's the end of the game situation stuff too, right? Like, we've talked about this. We don't have to get all into it, but the end of the games, the ball seemed to go to Jerami Grant's hands, and so, like, obviously that's a Coach Casey decision. And so, are they protecting Cade in those situations? Is it because they feel like that's why they brought Jerami Grant to Detroit, so they have to give him the ball in those situations? So I do think it puts a coach in a tough spot. Like, you have to keep these guys happy. You don't want an unhappy Jerami Grant. And so maybe it's another situation where it's better for everybody. And I remember, last year we talked about this with Killian Hayes early in the season. And I know he didn't get a ton of games, but with Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose, he was always deferring to those guys, right? He always felt like he had to get the ball in Derrick Rose's hands, let the offense run through Blake Griffin. And I'm not completely comparing the situations, but maybe there's a little bit of that for Cade. Like, he feels like he has to continue to let Jerami Grant do his thing because he was the star free agent signing and all that stuff before Cade came to town. So it may just be a passing of the torch that needs to happen.
All right, I agree with you, but I'll give you a chance now. I know so just to give you guys an idea of what's going on, if you guys are not watching this on YouTube, and you guys even watching on YouTube didn't get to see what was going on before the podcast, before we started recording. Bryce is over there. He got some notebook. Bryce, go ahead and hold. There you go. He got his little notepad right there, and he's been over there writing. He's been over there writing all these trade packages, all these possible trade suitors for Jerami Grant for like probably the past 30 minutes, going back to even before we hit record. So, Bryce, I'll give you the floor. You guys heard, those of you who listened to the last podcast, you guys heard what my thoughts were on the trade packages and what I'd like back for him. I'll say it again, but I'll give Bryce the chance to let you guys hear that first.
That's why I was a little lost at the beginning of this segment. I during the ad break, I was looking up trade machines and I completely lost track of what we were talking about. So I apologize. Okay, so here's my first one. What do you think about this one? Because this one's really interesting, and this one actually came from Sean Corp, Detroit Bad Boys. He's the editor over there. He's putting out an article, all 29 other teams, a trade package that involves Jerami Grant. Be on the lookout for that. Jerami Grant and Sadiq. I think you're gonna like this one. Jerami Grant and Sadiq Bey.
Wait, before you say it, are you saying I'm going to like this one because we're trading Sadiq and you just assume I'm going to like that we're getting rid of Sadiq?
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Go ahead.
Jerami, maybe it's because of what's coming back. Jerami Grant and Sadiq Bey for Miles Bridges, Kelly Oubre Jr., and JT Thor.
Whoa, okay.
So here, Kelly Oubre Jr. is only $5 million guaranteed contract next year, and then his contract's off the book. So I know maybe Kelly Oubre is not super enticing to people. JT Thor was a guy that just got picked in this last year's draft, an intriguing player. Kelly Oubre Jr. is only 26 years old, Koo.
Yep.
And Miles
I mean,
Bridges, that's a guy that people have talked a lot about.
I mean,
That's a guy that people have talked a lot about.
now I'll say this. When you read that to me, I think that's a hell of a ask to ask for Jerami Grant. If they got that for Jerami Grant Sadiq Bey, I'd be ecstatic about it. I think the Pistons would be willing. I think the Pistons, honestly, if they could, they'd probably be targeting Bridges in the offseason anyways with their salary cap if they could pull them off. So if they could get him beforehand, and they would have his rights, right? That he's a restricted free agent this offseason.
Yep. So
Yes.
that deal would have to go through, assuming you can, you're going to sign him to a long-term contract and have an idea what that number is going to be.
So I don't think that Charlotte would do that.
I don't either.
If I was the Pistons, I'd love to do it, but I highly doubt Charlotte would do that. Kelly Oubre also is having a great season for him. He's shooting 46% from the field, 39% from deep, averaging 17, a career high, or not a career high, second career high of his career. So I think he's having a great season. I don't think they want to split that up, or I really don't know if they want to give up Bridges. I don't think they'd want to do that. So the Pistons, I think they absolutely would love it, but I highly doubt Charlotte would offer something like that.
I agree with you. That one was like just exciting because I was like, that makes a lot of sense. But usually when you get that excited about one, it's because it's not, the value is not right. How about the one that I feel like people are talking about the most? I think the Atlanta Hawks one, right? OO and Reddish, and then you have to add in DeLon Wright or somebody to make the money work. I think that's one that a lot of Pistons fans really like. And I think you like that one, right?
Yeah, I very much like that one. I think that one's realistic. I think that one helps both sides. I think Atlanta would really love to have Jerami Grant. He would help them get to the next spot that they want to get to. Like I said, Jerami Grant, and Bryce has said this before, everyone understands this. Excuse me. Jerami Grant, it would be a great for a third player on a contending team, a fourth player on a contending team. And that's what he would be if he was heading over to Atlanta. And you have Trae Young. There's an obvious pecking order. So I think Jerami Grant would be really good over there for Atlanta. And I really like Okongwu. And I also like Reddish as well. The thing that there's a risk there, honestly, I feel like it's more of a risk for the Pistons because both those guys are really injury prone so far in their career. So the Pistons would be taking a risk and hoping that they stay healthy and get back to being healthy. For me, if let's just say, I know you have multiple other ones. If you guys saw the notebook, yeah, I know you guys. He has a ton of other ones, but let's say that's the only. The only one you get if you're the Pistons, and that's the best offer you got. I would take it. I like it.
Yeah, so that's what you brought up, and this was kind of where my tweet that I alluded to earlier was. I kind of want a guy that we're going to be very sure is going to be a starter in the NBA for the next 5 to 8 to 10 years for this team. I don't know how many of those guys the Pistons have right now. I don't know how many you think, Koo. I think we're in a very similar place on Killian Hayes, but I'm not saying it's a guarantee he's a starter. He maybe slide into the third guard role on a team that's really, a team that's good. And so I would like to see them be able to replenish with a guy. I'm not saying as high-level starter as Jerami Grant, but a guy you feel like is going to start along with some other like lottery tickets, like a guy that has high upside, a draft pick, whatever it is. And so the worry with that trade for me is I don't know that either of those guys are guarantees. Do you? I mean, even if it's just because of the injury history.
No, yeah, they're definitely, like I said, they're definitely not guarantees. There's risk to them because of the injury. I think I really do like Okongwu. I think if Okongwu can stay healthy, he is going to be a legit I think he's going to be a legit guy, a starting guy, if he can stay healthy and develop. I think there's also a pathway for Cam Reddish as well. I like Cam Reddish. I know there's been mixed results so far in his career, thus far into the NBA. But I do think that he has starter future in him if he can stay healthy and develop, continue. But there's definitely risk to both of them because you don't know their injuries and because you don't know how they're going to go development-wise.
So I want to ask about one, if I can ask you one that you don't like, and that's the Buddy Hield Marvin Bagley one. I think it was it today or yesterday's episode that you dropped where you said you wanted nothing to do with that one?
Well, yes. Do you want me to explain why, or do you want to go ahead?
Well, I'll just give my thoughts and then you can,
go ahead.
And I told you we'd probably disagree a little more than we normally do on this. I like the idea of Buddy Hield. I think he's still young enough. I think shooting is a skill that stays with you throughout your career. And so I think he's a starter on a good NBA team just because of that skill. And then I've heard enough even from Richard Stamen at Mavs Draft that does Locked On NBA Draft that he still thinks there's a path to Marvin Bagley being a successful NBA player. So that one intrigues me.
So I'm not interested in Buddy Hield. He is a starter for a team somewhere. He is a great shooter, but he's older than Jerami Grant. He's 28. So I'm not interested in that. That's why. And he also is on a decent contract. I don't really want to pay him. And I have no issue with the Pistons wanting Marvin Bagley. I'd like Marvin Bagley. But right now, I feel like he has negative value in the league. Everyone knows he wants out. Everyone knows Kings want him gone. And I feel like if any team gives up anything of value for him, when you know that his value basically is zero, you're losing that trade. So if the Pistons want to go out to Bagley, I'm completely supportive of it. If you want to trade like Josh Jackson or like a second round pick or something, then absolutely, I'm all for that. But giving up Jerami Grant, I think you'd be forfeiting up value that you could basically you could trade Jerami Grant, get more, and then still get Marvin Bagley by giving up like Josh Jackson or something. So I feel like you'd be taking a discount on Jerami Grant when you don't have to. That's my thoughts.
No, that's very fair. That makes sense. And one of the other California teams, the Warriors one, I'm assuming we'll get to in the third segment, but the Lakers, man, like I'm going to be so mad if he ends up in LA for one with the Lakers, but I'm going to be even more disappointed. I don't think there's a return that I like. And I know some people are really high on THT. I feel like the only reason we know THT is because LeBron kind of, pumped him up and all of that. Like, there's not a package there. The one Sean came up with was THT, Kendrick Nunn, and a 2025 first. Like, I'm not sure I'm excited about the possibility. And that's probably the best one you can come up with that's realistic, right? Like the Lakers just don't have it. It's kind of like the Jazz. I keep hearing him come up for the Jazz, but I don't think the Jazz have the assets that would interest the Pistons.
So I'm going to give my thoughts on the Lakers one after this ad break because Bryce definitely hits it on the head. And I'm probably going to take it a step forward, a step further with the Lakers one. Cause I'm really sick. If you guys follow me on Twitter, you guys know how sick I am of hearing the Lakers come up in these talks. So we'll talk about that and some of the other ones that Bryce has down in the third segment. But first, got to tell you guys about another one of our sponsors. First up, let me tell you a little bit more about TrueBill. Do you know why free trials be new without your consent? It's a business scam out to get you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download TrueBill to take control of your subscriptions. TrueBill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 per year with TrueBill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, TrueBill makes it incredibly simple. Just link your accounts and TrueBill will cancel your unwanted subscriptions in just one tap. And your TrueBill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. TrueBill has over 2 million users that have helped them save over $100 million. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/lockedonnba. Go right now to truebill.com/lockedonnba. It could save you thousands a year. That's truebill.com/lockedonnba. So I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And also, we are trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're definitely going to get there. I'd love to see if we can get it there by the end of next week. We're at 965 right now, just 35 away. You guys have done a great job over the last few days. I really appreciate all the support. So let's try to get to that 1,000 sooner than later. I'd really appreciate it. Head over there, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But Bryce, man, let me comment real quick on the Lakers one. If the Pistons were to trade Jerami Grant for THT, I don't know if you heard this part on the podcast yesterday, but I said if the Pistons were to trade Jerami Grant for THT, I'm gone. I'm out.
I heard you.
I'm out of there. I'm not a Pistons fan no more. I'm not doing this. It wouldn't be, the revolt against John Kuster led by Rip Hamilton back in 2000. Was it like 2010 that he did it? It wouldn't be the losing for a decade. It wouldn't be, the multiple missed draft picks or the trading guys too early or all the injury, everything that's went wrong for the Pistons. No, I'm okay with going through all that. But if they traded for THT, traded Jerami Grant for THT, that would be the line in the sand, and I'm gone. I'm out of there, and I'm finding a new team. I don't want to hear it. I'm sick of it. And like you said, literally, I feel like the only reason why THT gets brought up is because he plays for the Lakers and because he's LeBron's teammate, and everyone wants LeBron to win. So they're going to hype up everyone that LeBron plays with, so he can try to get a better guy to come play with them. It's very annoying with it because I seriously don't feel like THT is much of he's intriguing, but Sadiq Bey is intriguing. So like I don't know. I just not interested in him at all.
So what about we've talked about Miles Turner. What about the Bulls one? Because I heard you say you weren't interested in Kobe White. I think that was on yesterday's episode also. But do you have interest in Patrick Williams and then possibly another player that the Bulls could attach? And honestly, that fits the quote unquote tank of this season because Patrick Williams is out, but it was like a wrist injury that you're hoping he'd be able to return from. It's not like it was a structural knee injury or something like that. Like that one has to interest you a little, right?
No, yeah, I'm very interested in that one. So this is the trade offer I'd take from the Bulls. Obviously, I think you'd have to get salary filler in there somehow. I should pull Chicago Bulls salary cap up so I could have what salary filler it would be. But basically, what I'm looking at here is I would take Patrick Williams. And I think Troy Weaver would too. He obviously was the one who hyped up Patrick Williams heading into the draft. Everyone talked about he was the reason why his value went up so high. Weaver very much liked him. I like Patrick Williams, and what I would do if I was the Pistons, I'd take Williams, and I would take. I wouldn't ask for another player. I would ask for Patrick Williams. I'd ask for Portland's first round draft pick because they have Portland's first this year, and Portland doesn't look like they're going to do much this year. So I would ask for Patrick Williams and that Portland first, and if they accept that, I would take the deal.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I like Patrick Williams. I did a breakdown over the summer on Zach LaVine, and so because of that, I got to see Patrick Williams play quite a bit, and I like that one a lot. How about this one with the Celtics? This one was interesting. This one's going to tear at you a little bit, Koo. So Grant, Sadiq Bey, and Killian Hayes.
Yeah.
For Jaylen Brown, Aaron Naismith, and Bruno Fernando. I assume that's a salary thing. And I just want to, I don't remember which beat writer it was, but one of the beat writers somebody told me, maybe it wasn't one of the somebody told me that Troy Weaver and the Pistons were really high on Naismith coming into the draft. And that they would have taken him instead of Sadiq Bey if that's how it would have played out. I don't know if that's a lot for Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown's pretty, he's a big time player, big time scorer at least. That's the first I had seen of that. That's a Sean Corp Detroit bad boy one right there.
So Bryce is right. That's tugging on my heartstrings over here because everyone knows that I do like Killian Hayes. Obviously, I'm not going to be stupid. The thing is, the thing here is Jaylen Brown under contract for the next few years?
That's what I needed to look at as well. I looked up the stats just to kind of see what kind of year he's averaged 20 a game. He was an all-star last year. His scoring's down just a little bit this season.
All right, so I'm looking at Spotrac right now, and it doesn't say he's under it doesn't really say what his contract is. It's like blurred out. But overall, this is say without taking into his contract. And it says his contract, last year of his contract right here. I'm looking at it on Hoops Hype. It says his last year of his contract in 2023, 2024.
At 28 and a half. That's what Basketball Reference has as well. So it goes up by about $2 million a year for the next couple of years. So he's expensive.
So Jaylen Brown is legit. He is. I think that they would have to heavily consider that one. I think they would have to heavily consider that one. I'm not going to lie. That's a lot. I feel like that is a lot to give up for Jaylen Brown, but you could argue Jaylen Brown probably is worth it. From people outside Detroit, they'd probably look at it as not that much that Detroit's given up because they don't think highly of Killian Hayes and Sadiq Bey's having a down year. But if you're looking at it from the Pistons side of things, you're giving up your second best player and your two highest draft picks from before this past season. You're giving your two highest draft picks up, and guys that were apparently part of your core development. So that would be a lot to give up for Jaylen Brown from the Pistons side of things if you're thinking about it. But I think that that's something that you would have to heavily consider, especially if Troy is apparently this high on Naismith. I think they would have to consider that. And if the Celtics were to take it, I think the Pistons would probably do it.
Yeah, I mean, he's 25 years old, 26 years old. You pair him with Cade Cunningham. Now you definitely have your backcourt or, wings, and you go and hopefully, the problem is he's probably going to help us win some games throughout the rest of the year. So we may not get as high a draft pick, but then you assume you're going to add in the 2022 draft pick and you may have your core three guys there and you still have some complementary pieces that you can fill in around that. So
let me just say this real quick. While that it's hard to pass up Jaylen Brown, this is something I should have said in yesterday's episode, but I want to say now. One of my one of my main things I want to get back from this Jerami Grant trade. I don't want to make a trade that I think. Now, obviously, if it's Jaylen Brown, if you're being offered Jaylen Brown, it's hard to say no to Jaylen Brown if you're able to get him. I'm like, obviously. But I feel like something the Pistons should be wanting to do, and I think they probably are trying to do. They don't want to make a trade that's going to take them too high out of the draft lottery. I wouldn't want them to do that. I think, I've mentioned, like, there's last week we had you on the podcast, and we mentioned Miles Turner, if the Pistons go after Miles Turner. I think he probably would make them better, but I don't know if they're moving, like up the standings because they have Miles Turner. I still think they struggle. They just would look better while they struggle. You feel what I'm saying? So I don't know. Again, I don't know if that would cause me to say no to getting Jaylen Brown because he's Jaylen Brown, but I think that's something the Pistons should be looking for in the trades.
Well, this trade, you're pretty much going all in, right? Because you're selling on two of your sophomores, two of the 3 picks from last year's pick or draft in Saddiq Bey and Killian Hayes. So you're really going all in on this trade. Like, you're maximizing value to bring in a guy that you probably feel like is going to be your leading scorer, next to Cade Cunningham for the next, hopefully 6 to 8 years, and be a real core piece. So this one is really an all-in trade to me. Like some of these other ones, you're just kind of getting guys, you're opening up opportunities like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, and then you're getting some guys that are just going to be solid pieces. But you still have a lot of these younger guys. This one, you're pretty well all in. And I don't know if you want to talk about, I can't do that. Like, I'm a Ben Simmons guy. And I don't think Jerami Grant fits in Philly. I don't think anything we have other than Cade Cunningham obviously fits what Philly would need. But if there was some interest from Philly, I'm okay bringing in Ben Simmons. I don't know if we've got into this or not, but let me preface. If Ben Simmons is playing the role in a role that I feel like he needs to be in, and that's a huge if.
No, yeah, I said on yesterday's podcast that if they were to somehow, if the Philadelphia 76ers were to be interested in Jerami Grant for Ben Simmons, a package like that, at first I was completely against it. Right now, it would basically be something where I was like, okay, like, I don't like it, I don't hate it. It's like, okay, well, I guess it wouldn't be something I'd pursue, but I mean, if it happened, I would get it. I would understand it. I also would probably have my reasons to not like it still. But it's just one of the, I guess it's just like meh, okay, whatever. If you do it, you do it. That's just how I feel on it right now with Ben Simmons.
And I know the one you're most excited about is the Warriors one, right? Like,
yep.
That's so.
But I don't know. Have you heard anything? I haven't read anything that said that they're interested in Jerami Grant.
I think he makes sense, and like I think he makes sense in the sense of they should be in win now. I really think that. Like, I understand that there's this idea of they can win now as well as bringing along this young core of Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody. And I understand all that. I get it. So if they don't want to make a move, I understand. But if they don't think this roster is going to win a championship and that bringing in Jerami Grant to pair with all that other talent does win them a championship, then I think you make a move, and even if it causes your future to not look quite as impressive. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe that's awful team building. Maybe that's too nearsighted or short-sighted. I don't know, but I wouldn't blame them for making that decision. And all 3 of those guys are somewhat interesting to me.
I'd take Wiseman. If you told me that they're only offering Wiseman, I'm still pulling the trigger on it.
So you would go straight. I know you can't do straight up because of the money, but you'd essentially go straight up for those 2. I mean,
yep.
Okay.
I'd try to get something else. I'd try to go Wiseman. I mean, we talked about this on yesterday's podcast. I'd go Kuminga. I tried to get Kuminga and maybe like Moody or something, or maybe Wiseman and Moody. But I mean, I'd take Wiseman if that's what it came down to. Like, after weeks of talking and they wouldn't move off Wiseman, I'd pull the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, everything I heard about Moody coming into the draft was like he was an NBA-ready scorer. The problem is you already have NBA-ready scorers on that roster, so where's he fit? Because Jordan Poole is having a breakout year, and so there's no minutes for him. So I think he comes to this roster, and I'm not saying he starts, but I think he's playing and getting shots up and scoring for this team right away. I still want to find somebody that can tell me what's going on with Wiseman, because like I was really high on him last year. I thought he was going to be a really good player, and I feel like he started off the season decent, and then it wasn't and then the injury, and I just don't know what to think about him right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to try to speak to you. And actually, you suggested this to me. I'm gonna go hit up Locked On Warriors host and see if they can give me some insight on what's going on with Wiseman. But definitely, I'd take Wiseman for Jeremy Grant. You guys know I've been wanting a center. That's what I want. So if the Pistons were able to get a center out of trading Jeremy Grant, I'd be really happy about it. But we're getting close to the end. Bryce, do you have any other trades? We can get some more in.
I mean, I got like 6 more. So let me throw out the Nets one, because that one I saw somewhere else as well. So this one actually had Jeremy Grant, JJ, and Luca. I don't know why, all maybe just to match the number of players, but Joe Harris always seems to be involved. And then like this one would be Cam Thomas and Claxton. And I think you're high on Claxton as well. Or not high, I don't want to say high. That's probably putting words in your mouth, but you're intrigued by Claxton.
Yeah, I am intrigued by Claxton, though I don't know if I'd pull that trade off, because I mean, like, the reason why I like Claxton is because the Pistons don't have a center. They don't have no one who can roll to the rim. They don't have a lob threat. So getting Claxton, I'd like it. But I still think that there's other trades that you've mentioned so far that I like better than the Nets one.
And here's the thing, like Joe Harris, he's 30 years old, and I realize he's a one-trick pony, but he's been really good at that one trick. Like, he's not a non-factor. Now, I don't know what his contract is. I didn't look that up, and it may be it's probably a little more than what you'd want to pay. So that may not be a great, Thomas is another guy they talked about being an NBA-ready scorer. All right, how about a Grizzlies one? Because I know this involves a guy that we talked a lot about last year, and you brought the Locked On Grizzlies guy to talk about him. So Grant for slow-mo, which I think that's a salary filler, but it'd be fun still. I love watching him play. Brandon Clark, and Zaire Williams, who was the pick from this last draft. And then this actually had a first-round pick on top of it as well. I know you had talked about Brandon Clark, so.
That one intrigues me, but God, I like Brandon Clark. I do like Brandon Clark, but I don't know if I'm trading Jeremy Grant for that either.
So you're getting like 3 here's where the value is. You're getting 3 guys with potential, right? Clark, Williams, who a lot of people like, and then this particular trade, this was one of Sean's at Detroit Bad Boys, 2022 first round pick also, which the Grizzlies are playing really well right now, even without Ja. But so I don't know where that would land. But you're getting 3 lottery picks with that.
Well, the thing is,
not lottery picks, sorry. That's how I refer to it. Lottery tickets, I'm sorry.
Well, from the outside looking in, it looks like that Brandon Clark is like kind of taking steps back since his rookie season, and everyone's talked about how he's like completely screwed his jump shot up. So like I'm interested in Clark, but that's another one where
that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does. Right. But it's another one of those ones that I don't know if I want Jeremy Grant for that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like I said earlier, I want a guaranteed guy. Okay, last one, because I know the time. Just because it hits close to home. Jeremy Grant for Duncan Robinson and a 2024 first.
Nope. Not interested at all.
Jeremy Grant for Jackson Hayes and Kyra Lewis.
Not interested at all.
Grant,
I like Jackson Hayes, but he also has I feel like not very much value at all.
Jeremy Grant, Corey Joseph for Mo Bamba and Gary Harris.
All right, so now you're perking my ears a little bit, but I don't know if I want any parts of Gary Harris. He's like completely falling back.
I think that I'm pretty sure he's in the last year of his contract.
So let's look that up real quick before we wrap this up.
You like Mo Bamba though? Mo Bamba intrigues you.
No, yeah. Mo Bamba does. He does intrigue me very much. I'm pretty sure.
Gary Harris, last year of his contract. Expiring. So you're essentially trading for an expiring and Mo Bamba.
Mo Bamba is taking like a step forward this year too.
I like Bamba.
I like Bamba too, but God.
I
like the other ones more, but Bamba would be intriguing.
I'd want something else because, you're just going to let Gary Harris walk in free agency.
Yeah.
So essentially, you're trading Jeremy Grant for Mo Bamba. That's not good value for the Pistons. So I feel like you'd have, and I would imagine there's some other guys on that roster that would intrigue you.
You want to know someone else on that roster that I really much like, and a few years ago I begged for the Pistons to trade for? Markelle Fultz.
I wouldn't
But he
hate
doesn't
it.
make sense. He doesn't make sense for the team right now, I'd say.
He
But I
doesn't,
love him so.
and his contract's too much for me. But there's some other young guys on there that you might be able to add into it to make that value a little better. So,
All right, you got any other ones out there before we wrap it up?
nah, that was it. We crossed off the list.
All right. Well, there you go. You guys wanted to have a podcast full of just trade possibility and trade packages. You guys got it. You guys got it with one of your favorite guests, Bryce. Bryce, we're gonna end the podcast with this. I want your prediction right now. If you had to put money on it right now, with your life dependent on it, is Jerami Grant traded before the deadline?
Yes.
No, there you go. I also agree with Bryce. He'll be traded before the deadline. And for those, I'll give you guys a little treat. For those of you guys who listened all the way through a 40-minute podcast, I can confirm that they're interested in trading Jerami Grant. I can confirm that.
And that's
obviously, we've heard,
and that's why I answered so quickly.
Obviously, we've had reports outside Detroit talk about it, but I can confirm that they are at least interested in moving him. So take that for what you want. There's a little treat for all you guys who always make it to the end. But I thank you, Bryce, for coming on, man. Let everybody know where they can find you and your work at.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter. Check out the YouTube channel, Detroit Bad Boys, dropping articles. Cool as always, man. I appreciate it. I have a lot of fun. I hope the listeners enjoyed this one. I know I had a blast.
Yep, absolutely, man. Always a fun time when you come on. I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Hopefully by the next time, if you guys go crazy like you did last night over the last 24 hours, we may be recording the next podcast with over 1,000 subscribers. That would be crazy. But make your second listen of today, Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all your podcast platforms. Thank you guys again for listening to the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys heard some trade packages out there that we didn't mention and that you guys want to throw out there, go ahead and send them to us on Twitter or in the comment section down below on the YouTube channel. But until the next podcast, the Pistons play the Pacers tonight, I believe, on Thursday night. So hopefully they have a good game. But until the next one, I'll see you guys later. Peace out, everybody.